graduated from high school, a lady by the name of Carmen Britter gave me my first camera, which was a small Instamatic camera. Thinking back earlier, my dad used to photograph the family a lot, doing videos and snapshots, and getting that camera, I would go around taking pictures at times and just enjoying taking pictures. I would photograph different activities of me doing the same thing what my father would do, like at picnics or family gatherings and all. Later on, I started working at the Oakland Coliseum. At that time, the security wasn't as rigid as it is now, so you were able to connect with the celebrity when they're coming out of the dressing room. And I would photograph such artists such as Stevie Nicks, Dr. J, Ricky Henderson, Christopher Cross, who was a popular singer at the time, Lionel Richie, and Michael Jackson, and it just kept going on and on. I had built up such a portfolio of images. I was suggested to take them over to the local newspaper, which I did, and they would suggest that these were good, but your composition should be altered, and it would be good for you to tell some stories behind the images. So I got into writing, and I would bring them different images with my stories of the event, which led to me obtaining a lot of access to a lot of the shows, and I would just shoot an array of different entertainers. Back in the 60s, I was an art and music fan, particularly James Brown. And in 1974, he was performing at the Cow Palace, the Payback Show, which was a great show, a big audience and great media hype, Ebony magazine, Jet magazine, and all. So what I did over the years, I would collect different images of James Brown, and I would put together a scrapbook, and I took it to the show in order to meet James Brown. We went through a lot of obstacles, and we did meet James Brown, and I showed him my scrapbook, and I photographed him. And it wasn't the most greatest professional shot, but it was something that was pretty endearing to me because he was, he's James Brown. Over the years, I would go to the James Brown shows, and I would photograph him on stage, and I would have interactions with him. After that first connection with him, I've yet to ever have to pay for another James Brown show. I was able to call him up, and I was able to connect with him, to even bring him over to my father's house. I was able to see him and photograph him in the backyard putting, using a golf club on the putting green, which is a rarity. James Brown putting, in golf. I was able to go to lunch and go to dinner with him, stay at the same hotel with he and his entourage. So that you didn't get any better than that for me. 1984 was the big year of Michael Jackson. And through the Post newspaper, thanks to Gail Berkeley at the Post, who was the editor at the time, they would issue me press credentials to attend certain events such as the Grammy Awards. I think it was prior to that time I was shooting the black filmmakers as well. So shooting the black filmmakers and the Grammys and other just historic events was just, for an up-and-coming photographer. It just told you that you were on your way. As I look back at the years of a multitude of images, I praise the one above, the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, that I have the abilities to capture. And looking back at a lot of these images, or I see a icon on television, I say, oh, I photographed that person. Leonard Bernstein and Jermaine Jackson, Huey Lewis and the News. There's a lot of entertainers that have brought all of us so much enjoyment, and you're interacting with them, interviewing them. There's Shirley Caesar, there's James Cleveland, the Lionel Richies, the Quincy Jones, the Burt Bacharachs, and these were people that I enjoyed their music, and I enjoyed photographing them. Over the years, I've captured a multitude of images, and I've collected a multitude of images, and there's different news services that approached me to display those images for retrospect viewing of careers. One of the first was a show called The Lifestyle of Rich and Famous. They did a show on James Brown, and James Brown contacted me and said, hey, they're getting ready to do some a profile on me, and hey, I don't know how I get these pictures. I know you have them. I said, yes sir, Mr. Brown, I'll see what I can do. And finding out that James Brown had, at that time, he had an office in Hollywood, right on Sunset Boulevard, and right about 50 yards away was the production company of Lifestyle of Rich and Famous. I dispatched the images to them that they used for a James Brown documentary, and then they called me again. They said that we need some images of Chaka Khan. Do you have any Chaka Khan images? I said, I certainly do. So I used a couple of pictures I did of Chaka in performance, as well as at the very first Grammy Awards. The True Hollywood Story, the True Hollywood Story. They needed images of Bobby Brown and Whitney Houston. Not only did I supply them with images, I contacted a security person who's my best friend, Keith Graham, and Keith went on camera to talk about his experience being with the tours and all. So that was a benefit to me, because not only did they use a lot of my images, I was compensated really well, and I was able to connect them with somebody else. A lot of these images are basically for retrospect viewing, like Bobby Blue Bland, who we just recently lost. I did a Bobby Blue Bland display in a magazine called Goldmine. And as of recent, there's a show called Unsung. One of the first shows they did was on Phyllis Hyman and the group DeBarge. I go into my collection, I dispatched different images, and they used them. Steve Wozniak is the person that I did a favor for, and he rewarded me supremely. And within that reward became an association, a brief association, that I was able to have a lot of benefits. There was, with the Jackson group, Jonathan Moffett, the drummer. If you see the movie This Is It, the Michael Jackson, his last preparation for his concert tour, is a person that I met in 1981 at the Cow Palace at the Jackson's Triumph Tour. And over the years, he went on to play with other groups such as Cameo, Madonna, Elton John, and all the times that he played with these different artists, he would make sure that my wife and I were allotted tickets and access. Sheila E., who's a person that because went on before Sheila E. was Sheila Escovedo. I used to photograph her, and over the years we've been in association with. We've photographed her, as well as just after the shows, just kick it. There was a political event, and I saw these people walk around with tuxedos on, and I looked over, and there was William Marshall, who played the Blackula character, and he was wearing a tuxedo, and he looked like his character. I happened to have my camera, so I photographed I photographed him, and it was a testimonial dinner for Representative Ron Dellums. And at the time, his administrative aide by the name of Barbara Lee, who went on to greater success, she asked me, said, hey, since you're taking pictures, we don't have a photographer, would you take some of these pictures? I said, great, definitely. And just send us an invoice, send the pictures. I said, definitely. And here's Ron Dellums, here's George Sanford Brown and his wife, Ty Daly. There was Cesar Chavez capturing these political figures, and they compensated me. One of my worst experiences was with James Brown, and when he was performing, he called Ike Turner to come on stage, and I photographed that. And I was changing after the show. We went into the dressing room, and I was exchanging. I was reloading my camera, and I got distracted some kind of way. And here, James Brown and Ike Turner, they're posing for me and all. I'm snapping. And afterwards, we go over to the hotel where James Brown was staying, and he was looking through my portfolio of images, and I'm taking pictures of him, boom, boom, boom. I said, hey, Mr. Brown, let's take a group shot. By the way, he said, yeah, let's do this before I go to bed. So we took a group shot, and at the end, I think it was a frame roll of about 24. I'm at 25, 28. 32. I said, something's wrong. So I started rolling the film and open up the camera, no film. Now there's a lot of aggressiveness of the photographers. A popular night spot in Hollywood, a restaurant that celebrities would go into to dine and all. And with celebrities going in, on the outside there were paparazzi photographers. And one time there was an actress by the name of Shirley MacLaine going into the restaurant, and she looked very uncomfortable to all of us photographing her. And looking back at that picture, that was one that was pretty uncomfortable to me when I look back at it. I look at the images that I've captured. I never went beyond my perimeters as far as climbing over someone's fence or trying to capture somebody doing something embarrassing just to make a couple dollars. I did photograph, I had a situation where the National Enquirer called me for a situation where a lady killed her sister and it took her and obtained her identity in Oakland and burnt, and it was just a graphic situation, and they wanted me to photograph the person that was on trial. I go to the courthouse and I set up in the court with my camera, and the bailiff came to me and told me to go out. I could come back in without my camera. So I called the National Enquirer and I told them that I wasn't able to photograph. They said, well, we need a picture of that person. I said, well, in the newspaper, there's an image of this person's driver's license. They said, okay, what you do, send us that, take a picture of the burning house, and we'll take it from there. So the only thing I did basically was taking a picture of the house that was burnt and dispatched the image, and then they compensated me for my time. Looking back, the same thing was going on, but I think now is more photographers. The celebrities now, they are going through the legal actions, and hopefully that will be a result that would go into their favor. Dispatched the image, and then they compensated me for my time. I was at the Grammys, and a lady came backstage, and it was about maybe 50 photographers, and out of the 50, maybe a couple of us photographed her, because the majority of the photographers didn't know who she was. and she looked like she could have been Tina Turner's older sister. And I didn't know who she was, but I took her picture, and she was very pleasant, and her name was Celia Cruz. And then another experience was this lady walking down the red carpet, and I was shooting film at the time, and I got to my last shot, and I had to reload, and I asked her to wait till I load up my camera, and she waited. And as she waited, and I was loading, it was taking me a while to load, so I just grabbed I had an Instamatic camera that you got at a retail store that cost about maybe $3 or $4, and I took the greatest shot, and I blew it up, and that was Beyonce. That was one of my favorites. I photographed the first Soul Train Awards that was filmed at the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium, and as I was walking in there, I felt such a sensation, because that was the same venue that they recorded the Tammy Show in 1964 with James Brown, the Miracles, the Rolling Stones and all. But at this show, at the Soul Train Awards, the security wasn't as rigid, so I was able to slip around and photograph a lot of areas. I got some great shots of Luther Vandross, and I photographed Miles Davis. I photographed one Academy Award, and that's the one where Cher won for the movie Moonstruck, and she wore that famous Bob Mackie dress. I'm glad that I was able to capture the images that I did, just to be in the same presence of a lot of these musical icons. Then I said, well, if I could photograph the Grammys, let me give a try to photograph the American Music Awards. So I called the publicity person by the name of the Sheffrin Company, and I told them that I'm from the Post newspaper up here in the Bay Area. I want to see what is the procedure for me to attend your event. He said, well, first of all, we don't need that many photographers that the Grammys need. We only have a certain amount of photographers. I said, well, it's only me. I have a minimum equipment, so that's all. If that would usher me to capture the event. He said, well, it's only you? I said, it's only me. You don't have that much equipment? No, so I knew I had them then. I was able to photograph that event for close to 20 years. I mean, capturing the Eddie Murphys, the Barbara Mandrells, the array of those that have attended. On the same network, TV1, there's another retro bio show, Life After. I submitted to images of Christopher Williams that they used, as well as Regina Bell. And presently I'm working on a Clifton Davis and a LeVar Burton program that they are in production, and I've been submitting images. So my collection has gone from the video and then in periodicals. And there's a book on funk music by a professor from San Francisco State by the name of Ricky Vincent, who they used a couple of my images of James Brown and Sly Stone, from the Alice Coopers to the Kenny Rogers. And then there's an after party where you're tug-of-warring with somebody in a joking way. You're grabbing, let's say, some French bread or something, and somebody of a famous position might be on the other end or something. But that's, in other words, that you have time to photograph them as they pose with the podium, and then you interact and dine with them, and seeing different artists, like for instance Hank Ballard. I met him, and if those of you don't know, Hank Ballard is the originator of the twist, and it was a flip side of a song. But later on, I met him at the Grammy Awards. Now this is a situation that this would have been a great picture to take, but I wasn't able to take it. Chubby Checker was there, who popularized the twist, but I couldn't get the two of them together to take a picture, but I did photograph them separately. One guy was walking by himself, and I approached him. I regret that I didn't tell him where I was from, but he posed with my wife was Tupac. Only took one shot. I wish I would have taken more, but it just didn't happen. So you get what you can get. I was very fortunate to photograph that. I photographed the very first Soul Train Awards. I did about 5 of those. I have a traveling museum that I take to schools, churches, and different other areas. Certain events such as the Bay Area Blues Society's Hall of Fame were out in the lobby. I displayed a lot of my vintage blues and rhythm and blues artists. I've taken a lot of these images to schools, and I encourage the kids, if I can do it, you can do it. I tell them, if whatever your interest is, pursue it. If you like to collect rubber bands, if you like to collect rocks or something, pursue it. And it might be a benefit to you that's going to be really rewarding that you don't know until you try it. You're not going to please everyone, but it shows that my accessibility is still there, and I've been very fortunate to capture the images that people enjoy seeing and reading about. I have 99.9% of all the images that I did capture, because I look at my portfolio at times, and then every now and then I see a picture missing.